Because if we fail to recognize the marketplace as a legitimate site of struggle, right? There's a whole lot of history that we're ignoring, and it's a site of struggle potentially every bit as consequential as the workplace, right? If Black people are paying more, all things equal, for pretty much everything from household groceries to credit, it literally offsets any kind of progressive labor struggle for better pay, right? And so you add to that, there's some long time polling data, I believe, from Nielsen, that shows that Black people name the marketplace as the most common site of unfair treatment. That's more than the workplace, even more than their encounters with the police. They name the marketplace. Now, the other sort of problem with ignoring it and kind of under theorizing it, is, there are moments too, I think, when the kind of work that I do, and not just my work, could speak to some of the other sorts of issues. So one example comes immediately to mind. There are a lot of people, and not just scholars here, but it's become sort of popular for people to talk about wanting more exploration of Black joy. So this is just one example. I'm all in, right? I want some more of that too. But if you're failing to consider consumers and consumption, that can lead to an uncritical celebration of sometimes what just amounts to petty bourgeois elitism and commodity fetishism. Those things can be conflated with Black joy. They don't have to be, obviously, but I think that a perspective that centers consumers and fit that kind of work.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just hit on something that really speaks to this moment in the ways in which political economy, and particularly that point you made about that its survey data suggests that it is the marketplace, it's the field of consumption where
Mm-hmm.
where Black people experience the most racial discrimination.
Right.
And in some ways, one might say that there's a kind of irony there because much of the whole notion of the capitalist literature on
Mm-hmm.
the marketplace is that the marketplace corrects
Right.
for biases rooted in race and in other identity
Mm-hmm.
formations.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, we're gonna get to that with some of the more recent stuff that I've been doing. No, this is absolutely true, right? And so there's a way in which the marketplace is a site of struggle, both for inclusion, on decent terms,
Hmm.
but it's also, kind of part of a larger struggle around unfairness. There's nothing inherent in the marketplace that shields anyone from discriminatory, and let me actually rephrase, nothing shades you from exclusionary behavior on the part of others or predatory inclusion, right? And so people are constantly struggling in the marketplace. And I don't mean to suggest that what happens in the marketplace is somehow worse than what happens in other sites of struggle. But I do think it's more ubiquitous, right? Like everyone has to consume, right? There's no getting around that. It's impossible to not do that. And so there's no reckoning with contemporary Black life without reckoning with household level consumption, what people drive, where they live, what they wear.
Hmm.
And you cannot just denounce it all as counter-revolutionary. It can be that. But there's no system of organizing social life that doesn't have to grapple with these very ordinary kinds of everyday concerns. And that's why consumption is so important. It's universal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's a lot that's lost because it's
Mm-hmm.
not weaved into Black studies in an obvious and
Yeah.
theorized way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there's also a lot that's lost in terms of liberation movements
Mm-hmm.
because they don't take up the area of consumption as much as, say, in the past. I mean, when we think about that origin moment for the civil rights movement, which I
Mm-hmm.
locate with Montgomery bus boycott,
Mm-hmm.
It's a bus boycott,
Boycott.
right?
Right. Right.
That
Yeah,
speaks
absolutely.
fundamentally to
Right.
those questions. And if you think about it that way, then the argument that the civil rights movement didn't deal with economic issues is
Oh,
misplaced,
oh, absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
Completely
absolutely. Right.
misplaced because
I
it was
would
dealing with
point readers
consumption.
to I would point readers to one of my favorite things that I've read in recent years is a book by a historian, Victoria Walcott, called "Race, Riots, and Roller Coasters."
Oh, great book.
That's a
Absolutely.
great book.
Great
That is an
book.
absolutely great book. And she lays so much of it out, and I think it's done in such a clear way about how these kinds of dilemmas, people trying to get to the community pool, people trying to be on the beach. Man, I didn't know that Six Flags was named after all six flags that have flown over the state of Texas,
Interesting.
including the rebel flag, right, from the
Yeah,
Confederacy, right?
yeah,
That's one of the
yeah.
six.